every counselor/therapist is different. If you've never done couples counseling before and you're interested in doing it, you're going to have to vibe out your person because everyone does it differently. But for me, we found our woman through a organization that my individual therapist recommended. So it's called the Couples Institute, and anyone can go on their website. They have a certain roster of therapists globally, although I think they're largely Bay Area. Our woman doesn't live in the US. We actually happened to be connected with her because we were going to be in Korea for several months and we needed someone that was going to work in our time zone. So she's actually based in like South Africa. Very random, but it worked out. And specifically with this organization, they have a very specific methodology that they use. So I think all the therapists that are associated with Couples Institute, they have the same kind of like toolbox that they bring in, and then of course every person is like slightly different in how they work with their clients, so I'm sure they tailor it. She started with trying to educate us on like the foundational stuff that is occurring in every single couple so that we knew kind of like what is considered normal to be going through. Because I think a lot of times, especially when you're in conflict and things are so heated and you feel like you're at a standstill, you can think like, are we crazy? Like, are we just never going to work? Because who else could possibly like withstand this kind of shit right now and like be in a healthy relationship? And so it was really helpful that like in the first few sessions, she basically took us through like, what are the natural stages of a couple from when they like first get together and are like really eager to bond and like figure out all the things you have in common, up through when you start kind of figuring out like your each's different voice and like your different opinions, and then moving into like clashes where you're then having like power dynamic struggles, and eventually from there it's just like at that point couples have two options. Like you are not seeing eye to eye on anything and like it feels really hard to keep going, and you can either break up, which was like a really hard reality for her to just say, like, that's literally like an option. It's like, it's not gonna work. Or you take this opportunity to say, we need to find a different way of doing things if we want different results. And so then like that setup was kind of like the way in to teaching us like, what are these different ways to deal with things? And with the end goal being that instead of viewing conflict as like a negative thing, seeing it as almost like a puzzle for you as a couple to like work on together to learn more about each other and find like a joint solution to both feel good coming out of that conflict. It was very different for me because especially in the beginning, I think she was almost relying too much on the materials where I was like, I haven't spoken a single word in like 60 minutes and I didn't know I was signing up for like PowerPoint, you know what I mean? And that's actually a good point. Is like, I think for individual therapy and couples therapy, it is really important to give feedback to your person if you feel like you're not getting what you want out of the session. They're not gonna be butthurt. Obviously be kind and respectful in the way that you deliver the feedback, but like they're there to help you. So after I gave feedback of like, hey, I need to make sure that we have like sharing time as well because we need to apply it to us. Otherwise this is like not gonna actually help us just to know these things. And she's like, that's a great point. So then she kind of like tailored how much time she was spending on like the educational part and then how much time we got to share how it applies to us. But that's kind of how that institute works and how then she brought that methodology in. It was like every session she had like a specific, almost like a module of certain type of conflict or like reason. So for example, like a whole lesson on like triggers and where they came from and like how to recognize them and that kind of stuff. Like then we'd work through examples. So it was always very structured in that way. One of the main things that my woman emphasizes a lot is that the only way that you're going to be able to like become a stronger couple is if you build really strong trust between the two of you. At the start of every session, she does ask like, hey, before we even start, like, Ramon, what did Angela do well this week in terms of trying to, you know, change the relationship dynamic? Angela, what did Ramon do? So it's nice to kind of hear like the other person uncensored viewpoint on that. And then also something that she emphasized really early on that we're still not like great about doing, but I see why she emphasizes it, is she's like, every single day, you need to spend dedicated time together, whether it's as short as like 5 minutes because you're so busy you like can't spare more than 5 minutes, or if you have the luxury of like, you know, an hour or whatever, where all you do is affirm each other. There's touch, like you're hugging or you're holding hands, and all you're doing is saying what you admire about the other person, or like what they've done well today, what you're proud of them for. And it's like a sacred time when you're not allowed to talk about things that are like bothering you or like trying to solve problems that you have in your relationship. It's like just a time to uplift each other and to like physically, you know, be close with each other. And she's like, it's important because once you build up enough of a bank of these types of moments together, when you're in conflict, it's easier to remember that you love each other. Because when you're in the heat of things, you're like, I fucking hate you, right? You're just like, I don't even know
Why
if I love you
like
anymore.
This? God.
Yeah, exactly. And so she's like, you need to have a strong bank, because every time a conflict happens, you're essentially kind of like withdrawing a little bit from the bank.
Yeah.
So she's like, if your bank is empty, you're fucked. You know what I mean? So she's like, you need to do that. It's all about trust.